about how I said I hate being a poet. You see, for all the vulnerable poems, I had the right to finally get to this one. This one might just take the cake, but not before I give out these sweet metaphors like cavities, but I'm the one left with the bitter taste in my mouth. You see, sometimes I write as if I'm scared how the paper would feel about my vulnerability, as if the ink in my pen would permanently judge me, as if the words I write down will look back at me in disgust, but somehow my wordplay still manages to introduce a crowd's jaw to the floor. That my imagery can create tattoos of teardrops that symbolize either life or death. How a round of applause to my poems is the closest thing to prayer that some people may ever encounter, but I'm no God. In fact, I never knew a crowd snaps can sound like worship music to my ears. So I continuously trade pain for praise. Performing poetry now feels like I'm trying to convince the crowd to look at my scars as beauty marks. And the ugly truth is, I can get on this stage and tell you beautiful lies, but I think my defenselessness looks better on me. I said I hate being a poet. But the truth is, I hate being the one that God chose to preach to his people. I know that God doesn't call the qualified, he qualifies the call, but sometimes I don't even want to answer the phone. But here I am, standing in this pulpit, the safest place to dump my sins. I guess I'm really good at waste management. I've learned that every poet has a story on how they got to this point. See, for me, it was first grade. Miss Leonardo was my English teacher, even though she didn't know much of it. But she was bilingual in storytelling and therapy. I loved her classroom. On one cloudy afternoon in room 444, this angel told us to write about our favorite superhero. I wrote about the Flash. I didn't talk about his super speed, but I spoke about his accelerated healing. How he can heal himself faster than any regular human. That no matter what damage is inflicted, he will find ways to doctor himself back into health just to save lives. And at the tender age of 6, I thought to myself, maybe that can be me. Maybe I too can come out on the other side of life healed just to lend a helping hand to the helpless. Maybe that can be me. In a strange way, Miss Leonardo thought so too. So she insisted that I get a head start on my ministry and read my story in front of the second graders. You see, I was so nervous. I looked like a question mark standing in front of giants looking back at little old me for answers, but on that day, I went from being a young boy as a giggle on the playground to being an arsonist on stage. The very first time receiving a taste of vulnerability, and since then I've only added to the recipe. So for all the vulnerable poems, I had the right to finally get to this one. This one might just take the cake. I hate being a poet, but I love being a superhero more. Poem.